Thank you for joining us here at Lowry Sports Rhetoric. I am your host, Nathan.
I'm Daimon.
And today we're going to continue in the NFC South with the Atlanta Falcons. Last year, 2021, they went 7-10. They were third in the NFC South and no playoff appearance. They were 29th in offensive yards, 26th in offensive points, 26th in yards allowed defensively, and 28th in points allowed defensively. Not the greatest stats
Those
in the
are
world.
not good numbers.
GM is Terry Fontenot. Obviously, he was there 1 year. He was there last year only. And Coach Arthur Smith, again, 1 year last year. 7-10 is his record as a head coach. What do you got anything to say about those guys?
I mean, I think it's too early to say for sure. I'm maybe a little bit mixed reviews. I think, the 7-10 record is nice for a team, but how much of that was because Matt Ryan is Matt Ryan?
Sure.
And, I think when you have that level of quarterback, you're only going to fall off so much. I would expect this year for them to be worse than that.
Sure.
So, like we've talked about with some of the other... Yeah, I mean, the AFC, there were very few bad teams to talk about. There's going to be more bad teams to talk about here in the NFC. This is our first NFC bad team.
Sure.
With these bad teams, sometimes it's hard to tell. I think that, what we kind of common themed is, build through the draft, be smart about what you're doing. Let's talk, we'll go through, we'll see. I think it's too early to tell, but I might be leaning a little towards the negative. Just to get the Matt Ryan stuff, we'll talk about the Matt Ryan stuff when the trade comes. I have some opinions on that.
Sure.
And then you're about to name a lot of guys here in this free agent pickup thing.
Try to get through this fairly quickly.
Yeah, because it's going to be a lot of names.
They made a lot of changes. Free agent additions. The first one, Marcus Mariota, quarterback out of Las Vegas. I'm a Ducks fan. I love Marcus Mariota as a human being. I loved him in college. He was very good for us. Do I believe in him as an NFL starter? Not really. He did have the benefit of learning behind, Carr, getting there. Obviously, it didn't work out with him in Tennessee. I think he's a high-level backup. He does have some injury issues and hasn't been able to fully stay healthy there. I don't believe he is a long-term solution at quarterback, though I do love the guy. I mean, I really do respect him a lot, but just don't think that he's got it to be an NFL starter.
So I will say this. I think he's the perfect this, to me, is a good signing because he's the guy, okay, he was, like you said, big name, early draft pick, number 2 overall, right?
Yeah.
It didn't work out in Tennessee. He goes to Oakland. All the reports were they loved him. He was a professional.
He is.
So you got a professional guy. Now you're giving him a second chance with a new team, a new coaching staff. If he finds a way to tap into that potential that he had coming out of Oregon, it could be like a Tannenhill situation where
It could be.
where he ends up being a guy that is good enough to lead a team to the playoffs as long as the team's built around him. If not, then we'll talk about it in the draft. They drafted a rookie. You have the potential to bring the rookie in. Nobody's going to be mad that you benched this guy for the rookie. He's not going to be mad because he knows the score. He gets the opportunity to start, but if he can't prove to be a good starter, then he's going to mentor the rookie, and he's got the right mindset to mentor a rookie.
And that's exactly what I would say about him. Yeah.
So he was exactly the kind of guy you want to draft when you're in a rebuild. You're drafting a rookie, especially not a number 1 overall rookie that's going to start from day one, but a rookie that might need to be brought along a little bit. So to me, that was a really smart, good signing.
Yeah, I won't.
He could potentially be the starter for a couple of years, but if not,
and again,
he'll be a good backup that'll help the rookie come along.
Yeah, and I definitely feel that. I think mentor-wise, he is the perfect guy for the mentor role. Some of these guys are not, especially if they've had the starting job. They end up in the backups. They're going to have a little bit of an edge to him. He doesn't. He wants to see teams succeed. He's a very humble guy, a very, very intelligent guy. And, again, like I said, I respect the tar out of him. I'm not sure that he's going to continue to be the starter, but we'll have to see how it goes.
But he's also not a guy that's had 4 chances and already, definitely beyond a shadow of a doubt proven he's not the guy.
Yeah, I mean...
Because there's guys like that they could have picked up.
I mean, for me, the injury thing alone puts him in the category of I would be hesitant to think that he's going to last in that role just because he doesn't seem to be able to stay healthy. But again, that brain's there and the mentoring's there. So... Casey Hayward, cornerback out of Vegas. This was somebody that was kind of linked to us because we got Gus Bradley. I wasn't that excited about him, but obviously he didn't go to us. He went to Atlanta here. So.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those. It's like kind of like what we talked about with Jacksonville. It's confusing to me.
I don't know that they overpaid for him.
I don't know that they overpaid for him either, but it's.
I mean, you got to fill holes.
Sure, but I don't know that that's a rebuild kind of guy. Like that feels like a. I don't know. Maybe he's young enough that they felt like it was a good enough value to be a block to build around. But this is one that I'm not as sure about fit. I like the player, but I'm not as sure about fit wise. As like I feel like not Tannehill, but
Marcus Mariota.
Mariota was a good fit for what they're doing. I'm not sure that he's a great fit for what they're doing.
Okay. Next is Lorenzo Carter, defensive end out of the Giants. Again,
From Georgia. Upside kind of kid.
Yep. Rashawn Evans, linebacker out of Tennessee. And again, I'm going to try to kind of roll through these a little bit because there's a whole lot to get into. Damian Williams, running back out of Chicago.
Yeah, backup, decent.
Vincent Taylor, defensive tackle out of Houston.
Not that familiar.
Me neither. Anthony Ferkser, tight end out of Tennessee. We hate to not get into these guys, but again, you guys had a lot of stuff. So, Michael Ford, cornerback out of Denver.
Don't know about
Jermaine Afeti, right tackle out of Chicago.
Oh, bench guy.
Demir Bird, wide receiver out of Chicago.
Now, he actually came to Chicago from Atlanta, so they're familiar with him. He's going back.
Just bringing him back.
So, obviously, familiarity there.
Sure. Dean Marlowe, safety out of Detroit. Elijah Wilkinson, guard out of Chicago.
A bench guy, and I don't know.
Bradley Pinion, punter out of Tampa Bay. Bo Brinkley, safety out of Chicago. Or, I'm sorry, long snapper.
Long snapper. So we had a long-time long snapper that retired. Brinkley was given the shot, and now he's not there. So take that for what you will.
Auden Tate, wide receiver out of Cincinnati. Kadaro Hodge, wide receiver out of Detroit. Nick Kwiatkowski, inside linebacker out of Vegas. I'm sure I messed that up.
So, yeah, Kwiatkowski, he used on the Bears before Vegas. I love this kid. I was hoping the Bears would bring him back. He's a hitter in the right kind of defense. I think he can be a really good linebacker.
Some upside.
So, and he's young, so I can see, I really like that. I think he's intelligent and he's a hitter. He's not the best athlete in the world, but in the right system, he can be a solid player.
Cameron Batson, wide receiver out of Tennessee. Jalen Tabor, cornerback out of Chicago.
Not out there.
Eddie Goldman, defensive tackle out of Chicago.
All right, Eddie Goldman, Florida State. I was so excited when the Bears drafted him. He was a monster for us. He took a year off because of COVID. He got fat. That's what happened. We had paid him to be an All-Pro. He did not come back in All-Pro shape, so they released him because they had to get money. If he can get back to what he was pre-COVID, you guys got a monster as a defense. He's going to be a very good, borderline Pro Bowl level guy, but he's got to get motivated again. And I don't know that that's there. And even going back to his Florida State days, the talk on him was, at times he was a monster that dominated, and at times he seemed unmotivated. So take that for what you will. I know a lot about the guy. I really like him, but he is inconsistent.
All right, free agent losses. Foyeside, Alicone, linebacker. Yeah, I don't know. I'm terrible with some of these names. Linebacker went to Jacksonville.
There's a reason you do this instead of I do, because I don't want to butcher the names, and I have so much fun listening to you butcher the names. It's so fun.
Russell Gage, wide receiver to Tampa Bay.
Watch that Tampa Bay video. You'll get our opinion on Russell Gage.
I do think that's a loss for him. But,
yeah.
Josh Harris, long snapper to the Chargers. Obviously, that's why they brought in the other one. Hayden Hurst, tight end to Cincinnati. Dante Fowler Jr., defensive end to Dallas. I do think that's a little bit.
Those names the names you're reading now
compared to the names
are better than the names you were reading on the brought-in sheet in my mind.
Absolutely.
So
we'll try to get through this again quick. Fabian Morrow, cornerback to Houston. Mike Davis, running back to Baltimore. Thomas Morstead, punter, Miami. Duran Harmon, safety to Las Vegas. Matt Gano, tackle to the Giants. Steven Means, defensive end to Baltimore. Jason Spriggs, tackle to Indy. Jonathan Bullard, defensive end to Minnesota. Tajah Sharp, wide receiver to Chicago. Christian Blake, wide receiver to Arizona. We ran through those pretty quick because of the fact that there was so much action going on. This is a team that I think is just refilling things. They are moving people out, moving people in. Not huge names. And again, like you said, I think that they lost more than they gained. They're going to be in a rebuild. This has happened a couple years in a row now. It does seem like through the past several years, they've kind of gotten less and less good after that Super Bowl run that they did.
Yeah. It kind of somewhat like Jacksonville, right? Jacksonville had that run with Bortles where they got to the AFC Championship game and was like that close to going to the Super Bowl. And then they just never quite seemed the same until they hit rock bottom. They slowly worked their way to rock bottom. I feel like Atlanta's on that same kind of trajectory. Now this season to me is that rock bottom. And they're only going to win a game or two, in my opinion. I know maybe because in the NFC it's not as tough as the AFC. Maybe they'll sneak out some more. But I don't see a ton of talent there.
I'll throw about 4 or 5 games in there.
We'll see. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
But they're going to have a top 10 draft pick again. We'll see what we'll talk about the draft here in a minute. We'll see what happens between Mariota and the rookie quarterback. But I just feel like this is the rock bottom moment. This is the year that really kind of sets them to what are we seeing going forward. So I think next year's video, when we do this next year, we'll have a lot more to say about the job the guy's done.
Sure. Because
there'll be more to go off of. At this point, it's just really hard to know.
All right, let's go ahead and get into trades. Matt Ryan, quarterback. Is important to me.
Oh, I see.
Matt Ryan, quarterback to the Colts for a 2022 third round. I personally believe that's a steal.
Okay, so we got to talk about this. We got to talk about this. You benefited greatly from this. I think they mismanaged this so poorly.
Yeah.
Like, we talked about in the Cleveland video. We talked about in the Houston video. The Watson deal was weird. And I think, I gave the Houston GM props in the Houston video for what he was able to get out of it. I mean, we kind of laughed at Cleveland. Everybody knew the situation with this guy. It was a risk, and yet these teams were willing to pay huge. And obviously Cleveland wasn't the only one. Atlanta was willing to pay huge too.
Yeah.
And it alienated Matt Ryan.
It did. And he came out and said in the Pat McAfee interview, they asked him flat out, would you have stayed had it not been for this? And he said, of course. He said, yeah, this was the catalyst that pushed me to start looking for other teams. And obviously we benefited from it.
But to be honest, when we talk about that roster, I think they're better off without either Matt Ryan or Deshaun Watson.
I definitely agree.
I don't think that the Deshaun Watson trade would have been good for them.
I don't either.
And I think they needed to move on from Matt Ryan, so be it. The moving on from Matt Ryan is fine. It's just the way they mismanaged it.
I'll get into more of my thoughts of that when we get to the end and we start talking about the team, but I agree with you 100% on that one. I think it's actually a benefit to them that they don't have either one of these quarterbacks on their team. So,
yeah.
All right. They also did a trade of Brian Edwards, wide receiver from Vegas, for a 2023 fifth-round pick. Okay, let's get into the draft. Round 1, number 8, Drake London, wide receiver out of USC. If you watch some of my other videos, I am a gigantic fan of these big wide receivers. USC seems to always have them. I think Drake London, as far as I'm concerned, falls into exactly what I love about wide receivers. I think he is going to be an absolute stud.
I mean, he's good. I personally like the Ohio State guys better, and I think that... Oh, and the LSU kid better. But he's a good player.
I don't know. I like Drake London a lot. But, again, he's my type of receiver.
Yeah.
I like those big bodies. I like that kind of go up in the air, fight for that ball, get in the red zone. I like him a lot. And I think, especially when you talk about matching him up with Pitts, too. I mean,
it's an interesting 1-2 punch. And they're young. That receiving core's not great. So maybe they add the speed guy next year that's a great compliment to the other two. Well, for that matter, Pitts is the speed guy. It's funny, It's almost like Pitts is more the outside wide receiver and London's more of the wide receiver, the tight end, as far as preferred route running and style.
I can see that.
It's kind of interesting.
I think when they're building going forward. I like this guy as an addition here, and I mean, I'm high on him. I'm really
I think that is a great young duo.
Yeah. All right. Let's go on. Round 2, number 38. Arnold Apogeti, edge out of Penn State, and I'm sure I messed his last name up. I like this kid a lot too as well. I think he's got a high motor, and he does get it. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
There's some
like
upside there. I think the questions on him, there are some questions on him. He's not a guarantee, but there's definitely upside there.
I like it. I like that pick. Round 2, number 58, a guy I'm huge on, Troy Anderson, linebacker out of Montana State. I think this guy slept on a little bit. He's very athletic. He's done different positions. He didn't start out as a linebacker. I believe he's been like a tight end, maybe like he was like a offensive player.
Safety too for a bit.
Yeah, I mean like he's done a whole lot. He's very versatile, and I think he's got a ton of upside.
So the biggest knock on him is his size. And the school he went to, so he doesn't have tape against the big comp.
Absolutely.
But his size is a little bit, but the NFL's going towards this, so he's one of those guys that's like, if you're the right defense, where having hybrid kind of guys, like how Honey Badger does some corner, some safety, some linebacker. This guy can kind of give you a little bit, not like Honey Badger, but a little bit of that, like that versatility scheme wise. So yeah, it's especially in the third round. Interesting pick. Good pick.
Second.
So, I'm sorry, second round. But their third pick of the draft. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm high on Troy Anderson.
Yeah.
Round 3, number 74, a guy I love, Desmond Ridder, quarterback out of Cincinnati. He was actually my favorite quarterback in the draft. That's not saying much. I just want to be clear about that. I wasn't high on any of these quarterbacks. Here in round 3, number 74, I like it. I think it's good value. And I believe that this guy is going to take over from Mariota as the starter. Maybe not this year, obviously. Maybe not.
Well, once they're eliminated from the playoffs, you might as well. So probably at some point, it would make sense too.
I almost feel like I thought Mariota is a good match for, they're similar players. They have very similar style. I think Desmond Ridder might have a little bit of a higher ceiling there. We'll have to see how that goes. Like I said, I loved watching him play last year, and I'm big on the guy. I like him.
Yeah, I'm not as high on Ridder as you are. I don't really know what to think about his. I think the Mariota comparison is good. They're like some of my concerns about him are similar to the concerns I had about Mariota coming out. But yeah, as a third round pick, as a first round pick, I would have been like, reach, terrible idea.
And I like the kid. And I would
as a third round pick,
I thought
if it doesn't pan out, then it's not a huge loss, and you can move on in a couple of years. So I think since they're in rebuild mode, it was worth taking that chance. If he ends up being good, then you got to steal in the third round, and if not, in a couple of years, as you build the rest of that team around him, then you're ready to move on and find a different quarterback. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and I am higher on him than you. So, all right, round 3, number 82, D'Angelo Malone, outside linebacker, Western Kentucky.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you know more about this guy than I do. No.
I mean, from everything that I read, because I was looking at linebackers for us as well, like stuff for depth and stuff like that. He definitely has a lot of upside. A lot of people were saying that people were kind of maybe sleeping on him. He's from Western Kentucky, but he does have a high motor, and he's a very talented player with a lot of upside. Again, here late in the round 3. So I like the pick. Don't necessarily love it, but I mean, I think he's going to be a solid player, possibly.
Yeah, I don't know as much about him. So.
Round 5, number 151, Tyler Aguirre, running back out of BYU. I don't know much about him.
He's a solid back. I mean, this draft was loaded with these guys. This was loaded like.
And I think they're hurting at running back, right?
I felt like this draft. Well, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, they're rebuilding everything. Like,
sure.
I think this draft was one of those drafts where it was like there were so many different types of running backs.
Sure.
And if he fits the scheme they want, he had enough production, good enough physical attributes. I think he's a solid running back. He's not going to be one of the top 5 guys.
Sure.
But he could very easily be. I mean, we've seen this in the NFL for years now, where a guy in college looks like he's just okay, and then he goes to the NFL, becomes a star, or a guy in college looks like a star, he goes to the NFL, he's just okay. So
yeah.
I think scheme fit will be important, and if their GM is good and they know how to match talent to scheme fit, he'll probably be a good pickup.
Round 6, number 190, you got Justin Schaefer, guard out of Georgia.
Don't know a lot about
Me neither. Round 6, number 213, John Fitzpatrick, tight end out of Georgia. Again, I don't know much about him.
When Georgia brings in good athletes, that's about as much I can say about all that.
Sure. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get into the starters here. Offensive starter, you got projected Marcus Mariota.
Until they turn it over to
I do feel that way.
If you're like, 3-9, you might as well let the kid play, right?
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, stat-wise, 4 yards, 87 rushing yards, and a touchdown for the Raiders. It was nothing. Obviously, you got Derek Carr there, so back up. Running back Cordell Patterson, 618 yards, 6 touchdowns, 69 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns.
It's so weird. He came in as a wide receiver, made his bones as a returner. Starting with us, kind of was like a jackknife, like a Swiss Army knife. Where you kind of do a little bit of everything. And then, seems to have found home converting to a running back, even though he doesn't necessarily have a running back body. I think it's a weird guy to have a starting running back, but he's talented and
he's a very good athlete.
He's a very good athlete. I don't know. I don't know that that's your long-term answer as the starting running back.
Sure.
I don't know the guy you drafted in the 5th round is either, so maybe that guy's not on the roster yet.
Yeah, there's still going to be some holes here on this team.
Yeah.
Okay. Drake London, again, wide receiver rookie. Love him. I like him a lot. We got Brian Edwards. He come out of the Raiders. 34 receptions, 571 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Wide receiver Alamide Zacchaeus, 31 receptions, 406 yards, and 3 touchdowns. These are not mind-blowing things here. Tight end Kyle Pitts. He was a rookie last year. 68 receptions, 1,026 yards, and a touchdown. Would like to see a lot more touchdowns.
Yeah, but that kid is...
stud.
He's
the star of this team.
He's interesting.
He's the star of this team. Take it for what you will. Again, you're going to have some holes here. It's going to struggle. I think you have mostly your upside and your talent level is young. That's the way I look at it there. You got fullback Keith Smith. On offensive line, you got Jake Matthews at left tackle, Jalen Mayfield at left guard, Matt Hennessy as center, right guard Chris Lindstrom, right tackle Caleb McGarry. Don't know how much to say about any of that. Okay, we're going to go to defense here. Left defensive end, you got Marlon Davidson, 21 tackles, 1 sack, 1 fumble recovery, 1 interception, 1 touchdown, 1 pass deflect. Nose tackle Tywan Graham, he was a rookie last year, 15 tackles. Right defensive end Grady Jarrett, 59 tackles, 1 sack, 1 fumble recovery, 1 pass deflect. Then you have the rookie linebacker Arnold Apikiti, again, don't know how to say his name. Left inside linebacker Deion Jones, 137 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 6 pass deflects. Right inside linebacker Rashad Evans, 57 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, 2 interceptions, 2 pass deflects come over from the Titans. They had a lot of change here. Lorenzo Carter, linebacker, 50 tackles, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, 1 interception, and 5 pass deflects from the Giants. Solid.
And I think he's got the potential to get better.
Absolutely.
That one, and I don't see the numbers. I don't know if they overpaid to get him or not. I really didn't pay attention to that. But that's the kind of signing I think makes sense, where it's a guy that didn't work out somewhere as much as maybe the hype around him coming out of college. This is the kind of signing I'd like to see teams make. Plus, he's from Georgia, so it's a local guy. You take the shot. This is the time to take shots on those guys that didn't pan out that were high-level rookies.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that signing for them.
A.J. Terrell, 81 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 3 interceptions, and 16 pass deflects at cornerback, left cornerback. That's good. I like those pass deflects. Strong safety Dean Marlowe, 67 tackles, 1 fumble recovery, 2 pass deflects come over from the Lions. Free safety Eric Harris, 64 tackles, half sack, and 8 pass deflects. And then right cornerback Casey Hayward out of the Raiders, 46 tackles, 1 interceptions, 9 pass deflects. We're going to go ahead and get into that. Again, as we've said kind of throughout this whole thing.
So while you were reading that, I yawned.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's pretty much, it's a sign of what I think of the Falcons.
I mean, look,
they've
taken a step back. Yeah,
they're a yawn right now.
They're taking a step back. Obviously, they were 7-9. I don't see them getting back to that 7-9 without Matt Ryan. He definitely cleaned up some of the holes that they had last year. I think you have more holes this year than you did last year. But rebuilding and going forward, I like some of the pieces that they added. Again, I was high on a lot of the draft picks. A lot of those people I like a lot, and I could see Ritter being good going forward, being at least a solid player as you rebuild your team around him. So I don't think I would have high hopes if I was a Falcons fan, but I would look at the future.
So, okay, I think they got Pitts as a star last year's draft.
Absolutely.
Nice. And then they got a lot of guys that, like you just said, even like what I said with Carter, they got a lot of guys that they have the potential to be solid pieces of a rebuild. I don't see, outside of Pitts, I don't see that guy that you go, oh, he's going to be special. And I think you got to have 3 or 4 of those guys. So maybe that's coming. Maybe that's coming in this year's draft. I don't know.
Right.
And then maybe Anderson ends up being one. I think Anderson has the potential to be one. I think
he does too.
I think Anderson has the potential to be one. Personally, I don't see that with London. I think London has the potential to be a very solid NFL player. But I don't think he's going to be one of those top tier guys. I just don't think he has that in him. I think he could be a maybe Mike Evans. Mike Evans is probably the absolute ceiling. He could be a Mike Evans.
I'd be happy with that.
He could be a Pittman. But I don't think either one of those are guaranteed. I think he could be less than that as well.
That's true.
And so I don't see this is what I'm missing here. And even with, like you said, with Ritter, even with Mariota, like Mariota could be the next Tannehill. Well, Tannehill's good, but he's not
great.
I'm not tuning in. I'm not tuning in to watch him, but I'm tuning in to watch, all those other guys we talked about during those AFC videos, right? So that's what the team doesn't have anything for me to tune in. Like 2 years ago, we were watching Bengals games because we wanted to know how good Joe Burrow really was. We knew they weren't going to make the playoffs, but we wanted to see how good Joe Burrow was. So I was watching them, even though I knew they weren't going to be a playoff team. I mean, unless Atlanta's playing the Bears or the Colts, I don't see a reason for me to watch them this year.
I feel differently about it only because I did like Ritter so much. Obviously, I'm a Ducks fan. I like Mariota. I'm going to tune in to watch those guys just because of my personal preference for them, even though you're right. I mean, I don't feel like those guys are going to blow your mind. So, from a casual standpoint of a fan outside of Atlanta, yes, I could definitely see where you're not going to get people tuning in to watch you play. And again, I do feel like they're going to take a step back. He's got them 1 or 2 wins. I've got them more about 4 or 5. We'll see. Either way, that's not that.
Well, and that's 1 or 2 wins without looking at the schedule. So
right,
maybe if I looked at the schedule, I would change my mind. I just don't. They feel like a team that's not going to win a lot of games.
Yeah.
And so then, nuts and bolts. Final thing. We are talking about the offseason they had. What do I think? I think they had an offseason that was,
Yeah. I mean,
3 years from now, I might look back and go, wow, these were some really good moves. But I'm not seeing it right now.
Absolutely.
I feel like when we talked about Houston and the way they went about rebuilding, I liked Houston's draft much better than this draft. Houston got a lot more draft capital out of their guy, settling for only a 3rd round because you mismanaged the Matt Ryan situation. I mean, I feel like that hurts you a little bit in this rebuild. I feel like they've kind of rebuilt with one. You know what? This just hit me. This is how I actually feel. I feel like they're doing a Bears kind of rebuild, where the owner wants them to still be somewhat competitive, so they're not going all in on the rebuild. And as a Bears fan, this is years and years and years of these rebuilds where it's like, we know we're not good enough to compete, but the owner doesn't want empty seats, so we're going to sign just enough quality free agents to keep us trying to win games, even though we're not good enough to. And yeah, so maybe they will win. Maybe now that I say that, maybe they will win more like 5 or 6 games. But they got 0 chance of winning their division.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be fun to watch.
You got Tampa Bay in their division.
And it could be, but they're also not going to get. They're not going to be a wild card team either. They're just not.
Totally agree.
They're just not. And so what are we doing? What are we doing? What's there to be excited about for the future? Are they rebuilding to be a championship team, or are they rebuilding to be a mediocre team? And that's yet to be determined. But I like what a couple other teams have done more than this one. It's still better than the Jaguars, but it's not.
I feel like it's baby steps, baby steps. You're not going to jump in there and, like you said, like you're not going to jump in there and be a wild card. You got to know who you are. In my opinion, I like what they did going forward as far as putting a little bit of those building blocks down there, and then we'll see in a couple years if they can continue to add some building blocks that they might be competitive. Again, I'm higher on Ritter than you are as well, so we'll have to see how that all plays out. But I'm higher on Atlanta than he is. So not by a whole bunch, but again, I think building for the future, I like it.
Which is ironic because all through the Matt Ryan years, it was the other way around.
And now I'm excited about having Matt Ryan on my team. So yes, it is ironic. I agree. So
anyways,
yeah, thank you for giving us a watch. If you got anything out of this content, give us a like, give us a subscribe.
Go ahead and hit those comments up. I'm sure the Atlanta fans didn't like what I had to say. Is he more realistic, or is he even not giving you enough credit? Let us know what you think. We're always up for the conversation. That's what the channel's about. We want to conversate with other fan bases. We want to conversate with other sports fanatics, people that are crazy about this stuff, people that are spending their July doing research about a team that they don't even follow. We want to know what you thought about our thoughts on your team.
Thank you for giving us a watch, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.